So, what I want to talk to you tonight is a lot of things that we grew up with. I'm 51. I was born in 1969. A lot of things that we grew up with, and I'm talking, anywhere from 40 up, that we grew up with that was acceptable at the time is no longer acceptable. And it's not cancel culture, right? What we accepted and what our parents allowed us to watch shouldn't have been accepted at the time then. The 6 books by Dr. Suess that were recently canceled publication, not banned. You can still go to the library and pick it up. These books aren't banned. These books are not going to be published anymore. And the reason why is these books have racist imagery in them. A lot of things, though, from the 1970s has racist imagery. So I'll give you an example. The Aristocrats, right? There's one scene in that I always remember where there's 2 Siamese cats and they're being portrayed as being evil. Now, of course, as a young child, right, you wonder, okay, are all Asians like this? Because the thing is, you don't have enough knowledge of the world, and I think to some degree a lot of adults don't have enough knowledge of the world to be able to understand that this is wrong. Dumbo had to be cut. Song of the South, that's pretty obvious. Some scenes in other movies were cut. Peter Pan, there was a scene in that where why is the red man red? And they're talking about Indians, right? And again, that's a stereotype, and that's something that should never have gone out in the first place. But racism back in the 70s and 80s, say early 80s, was like drunk driving. It was considered socially acceptable. Now, the thing is, I'm not against racist humor in adult situations. With Pepe Le Pew, which is another thing that's recently come up, some people accuse it of celebrating race culture. And I think the problem is that some people use it as an excuse for their behavior. But the thing is, if you watch Pepe Le Pew as an adult, you realize that the people that wrote this cartoon are making fun of Pepe Le Pew. They're lampooning him. They think this behavior is idiotic, right? He always winds up in the most horrible situations because of this. But the thing is, it's the target audience. It's children, and children may not be able to understand satire. And in some ways, I don't want a child to understand. If a child understands satire, then that means the child understands how truly shitty the world really is, and what these cartoonists are making fun of. So I'm hoping that a child watching that doesn't actually understand satire. But at the same time, because the child doesn't understand satire, might think that this is acceptable behavior. Some adults think it's acceptable behavior. So a lot of what people are calling cancel culture, it's not cancel culture. It should never have been culture. What the hell were we thinking culture? And that's what we have to think about. We are not living in 1975. We are living in 2021. I still can't believe I'm actually 51 years old. But people need to do one thing, and that's grow up. A lot of things that we considered socially acceptable, drinking and driving, racism, a lot of stuff that, looking back, what were we thinking, right? So anyway, that's my thought on cancel culture. It's not cancel culture, it should never have been culture. We've got to fix this. We know what's wrong. And I think a lot of the problems too, especially with the 70s, was we weren't really listening. I mean, that's the reason why there was a Million Man March in Washington in the 1960s, because white people weren't listening. We're now listening. We're now trying to do better, right? And anybody that stands in the way of progress, especially when it comes to race and cultural issues, you're a relic. You belong in a different period. You are the Archie Bunker of the 2020s. If you use the word cancel culture, when we're talking about racism, we are talking about whitewashing history, when we are talking about things that we shouldn't have done, that we should have been able to look at and say, is this offensive to somebody? Am I causing somebody offense? Am I watching this to back up my own racial prejudices? And the thing is, a lot of people are just going to argue this point, but the point is, you're either for progress or you're against progress. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with progress.